I will never forget the day my husband, the man I loved, suddenly changed after my mother-in-law's accusations. When our son was born, he shouted, "This is not my son. You've betrayed me." I stood up to him and said, "How dare you accuse me of such a lie?" His face turned red with rage as he grabbed my hair and shoved me hard while I was holding my baby. I crashed into a table and fell to the ground, hurt. Ignoring my pain, I looked toward my son and let out a terrified scream. "Hello, my name is Leela, and I'm 28 years old. I work as a personal trainer at a local fitness center in Riverside, a small but bustling town. Fitness isn't just my job, it's my passion. I enjoy helping people achieve their health goals and find confidence in themselves." My dedication to my work led me to meet Ryan, a regular client at the gym. Ryan and I quickly bonded over our shared interest in fitness. Our professional interactions turned into friendly conversations, and soon we were dating. After a year of building a strong, loving relationship, we decided to get married. Life felt perfect, or so I thought. Ryan's family was part of the package, and while his younger brother, Zach, and I became fast friends, his mother, Mia, had a completely different reaction to me. From the moment we met, Mia made it clear she didn't approve of me. She'd often refer to me as a gym girl and question my suitability for their family. I tried to brush off her comments, thinking they were harmless or that she'd warm up to me over time, but I was wrong. At the time of our marriage, Ryan and I were already excited about starting a family. Not long after our wedding, I became pregnant. Our son, Mark, was born a year into our marriage, and he quickly became the center of our world. I loved every moment of being a mother, and Ryan seemed overjoyed as well. However, Mia's disdain for me didn't diminish, even after Mark's arrival. Instead, she became more critical, and her behavior began to create tension in our lives. Mia's criticisms often felt relentless. She would drop by unannounced, passing judgment on everything from the way I dressed to how I managed my time between work and caring for Mark. Despite my efforts to stay polite, her comments cut deep, especially when she implied I wasn't a good mother. Ryan tried to mediate, but he often ended up caught between his loyalty to his mother and his love for me. One particular afternoon at the fitness center, Mia decided to escalate her disapproval in the most public way possible. I was in the middle of coaching a group class when she walked in unexpectedly. Ryan was in the weight section, and Zach was on the treadmill. Hoping to avoid conflict, I greeted Mia with a smile. "Hello, Mia. I wasn't expecting to see you here today." Her eyes scanned the room before landing on me, her expression a mix of disdain and suspicion. "I see you're busy," she said, her voice sharp. "Surrounded by men as usual. Is this your job, or is it something else entirely?" The audacity of her comment left me momentarily speechless, but I quickly composed myself. "Mia, I'm here to help people with their fitness goals. That's my job." She scoffed, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Parading around in those outfits, pretending it's work? I know what you're really doing." Her words stung, and I felt my cheeks flush with embarrassment. Before I could respond, Ryan appeared, clearly overhearing the conversation. He dropped the weights he was holding with a loud clang and stormed over. "Mom, what are you doing?" Ryan asked, his tone a mix of anger and disbelief. Mia crossed her arms and stood her ground. "I'm speaking the truth, Ryan. Someone has to open your eyes. Look at her. She's always surrounded by men, acting all friendly. It's humiliating." Zach, stepping off the treadmill, joined us and tried to calm the situation. "Mom, that's not fair. Leela hasn't done anything wrong." But Mia wasn't done. Her eyes narrowed as she turned to Zach. "And you're always defending her. Makes me wonder what's really going on between you two." Her words hung in the air, heavy with accusation. I felt my stomach drop as Ryan's expression shifted to one of shock and confusion. "That's enough," Ryan snapped, his voice rising. "Leela and Zach are just friends. You're way out of line. Mia stormed out of the gym, leaving us in an awkward and tense silence. Ryan turned to me, his face filled with regret. "I'm so sorry, Leela. She had no right to say that." I nodded, but my heart was heavy. Mia's words had planted a seed of doubt, and I feared it would grow if left unchecked. The tension Mia created didn't end at the gym. That evening, as Ryan and I put Mark to bed, I could feel the weight of her accusations lingering in the air. Ryan sat silently on the edge of the bed, lost in thought, while I gently rocked Mark to sleep. "Ryan," I said softly, "you don't believe what your mom said, do you?" He looked up, his expression conflicted. "Of course not, Leela. I know you and Zach are just friends. It's just, she's my mom. It's hard to hear her say things like that and not let it get to me." I sighed, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I understand she's your mom, but her words are hurtful. Not just to me, but to us. If she can't respect our family, how are we supposed to move forward?" Ryan reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "I'll talk to her, Leela. I promise. I don't want her to keep interfering like this." Despite his reassurance, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much bigger problem. A few weeks later, Mia invited us to her house for dinner. I hesitated to go, knowing it would likely end in more conflict, but Ryan insisted we attend. "Maybe if we show her a united front, she'll back off," he reasoned. When we arrived, Zach greeted us warmly, while Mia barely acknowledged my presence. The evening started on a tense note, and it didn't take long for Mia to ignite another argument. "So, Leela," she began with a forced smile as we sat at the dinner table, "how's work? Still mingling with all your male clients?" Ryan's jaw tightened, and I could feel his frustration building beside me. "Mom, can we not do this tonight?" he said, his voice firm. Mia feigned innocence. "I'm just making conversation. It's a valid question, isn't it?" I took a deep breath, determined not to let her provoke me. "Mia, I'm a personal trainer. My clients are there for their fitness goals, and I'm there to help them. That's all." She let out a sarcastic laugh. "Oh, please, I've seen the comments on your social media. Men fawning over you like you're some kind of prize." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Zach, ever the mediator, spoke up. "Mom, that's enough. You're being unfair." Mia turned her icy glare toward Zach. "And why are you always defending her? You two seem awfully close." Her words hit like a slap, and I felt the air leave my lungs. I looked at Ryan, hoping he would shut her down, but he seemed frozen, his face a mixture of shock and anger. "That's enough, Mom," Ryan finally said, his voice low and trembling with barely controlled rage. "Leela is my wife. You need to respect her." Mia scoffed, dismissing his words with a wave of her hand. "I'm just trying to protect you, Ryan. Open your eyes before it's too late." The rest of the dinner was a miserable affair, with little conversation and an unbearable tension hanging over the table. When we returned home, Ryan and I sat in silence for a long time before he finally spoke. "Leela," he said hesitantly, "do you think there's any truth to what my mom said? About you and Zach?" I stared at him, stunned and hurt. "Ryan, how can you ask me that? You know me. You know Zach. How could you even entertain such a thought?" He ran a hand through his hair, clearly torn. "I don't know, Leela. My mom's words, they've gotten into my head, and I don't know what to think anymore." Tears welled up in my eyes as I tried to keep my voice steady. "So you're taking her side? You're letting her poison your mind against me?" "I'm not taking sides," he insisted. I need time to sort this out." Without another word, he left the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the crushing weight of doubt he had just placed on my heart. Over the next few weeks, Ryan and I drifted further apart. Mia's accusations had taken root in his mind, and no matter how hard I tried to reassure him, he remained distant. Mark, oblivious to the turmoil between his parents, became my sole source of comfort during those difficult days. One evening, as I was sitting in the living room cradling Mark, Ryan walked in, his face drawn and full of frustration. He stood in front of me, his hands clenched into fists. "Leela," he began, his voice shaking, "I can't stop thinking about what my mom said. How do I know Mark is even mine?" His words struck me like a lightning bolt. I stared at him in disbelief. "Ryan, how dare you? Mark is your son, and you know that. I've been nothing but faithful to you." He began pacing the room, his frustration bubbling over. "It's not that simple, Leela. My mom's been in my ear nonstop. Every time I look at Mark, I hear her voice." Tears streamed down my face as I clutched Mark tightly to my chest. "Ryan, you're letting her destroy our family. You're letting her poison you against me and your own son." Ryan's voice rose, his anger overtaking him. "How can I ignore what she's saying? You've always been so close to Zach. It's hard not to question everything." The tension in the room reached its breaking point as Ryan stepped closer, his frustration boiling over. In a moment of uncontrolled rage, he pulled my hair and shoved me forcefully while I was holding Mark in my arms. I stumbled backward, holding Mark tightly as I lost my balance. My back hit the edge of the coffee table, and I collapsed onto the floor. Pain shot through my body, and Mark began wailing, his cries echoing through the room. "Ryan," I screamed, gasping for breath. "You pushed me while I was holding our son. What's wrong with you?" Struggling to my feet, I cradled Mark protectively in my arms. Tears of anger and pain streamed down my face as I glared at Ryan. The weight of what had just happened crushed me. The man who was supposed to protect me had pushed me, endangering both me and our son. "You want proof, Ryan. Fine, I'll do a DNA test," I said, my voice shaking with both fury and heartbreak. "But when it proves that Mark is yours, I'm done. You'll lose us forever." Ryan stood frozen, his face pale as he realized the gravity of his actions. "Leela, I didn't mean to," he began, but I cut him off sharply. "You don't get to apologize for this," I snapped, my voice trembling with resolve. "You doubted me, you pushed me, you let your mother poison our lives, and now you've crossed the line." I didn't wait for his response. With Mark still crying softly in my arms, I marched upstairs to pack a few essentials. I couldn't stay in that house any longer. It wasn't safe for me or for my son. While Mark lay on the bed beside me, I threw some clothes into a bag, grabbed Mark's diaper bag, and carefully gathered important documents. I knew I needed a plan, but first, I had to get out. As I carried the bags downstairs, Ryan stood near the doorway, looking broken and unsure. "Leela, please don't do this," he pleaded. "We can fix this." I stopped, my hand tightening around the strap of my bag. "You should have thought about that before you let things get this far, Ryan. I'm leaving, and I don't know if I'll ever come back." Without another word, I stepped out of the house and drove away. I didn't head to my parents' house right away. I knew they would support me, but I needed time to process everything and figure out my next steps. That night, I checked into a small hotel, using the time to search for a temporary apartment where Mark and I could live safely. Within a week, I found a modest but cozy apartment on the outskirts of town. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was ours, a fresh start away from the toxicity of Ryan and Mia. Standing in that empty living room, holding Mark close, I made a silent promise to myself. I would never let anyone endanger us again. Settling into the new apartment brought a sense of relief, but it also came with its own challenges. I spent the first few days unpacking the essentials while trying to keep Mark calm and happy in this unfamiliar space. Despite the overwhelming emotions swirling within me, I focused on one thing: keeping us safe and moving forward. The quiet of the apartment gave me time to think about what I needed to do next. I couldn't ignore Ryan's actions, the physical and emotional harm he'd caused. The memory of that night haunted me, and I knew I had to hold him accountable. I called my parents and explained everything, from Mia's manipulation to Ryan's violent outburst. They were furious and immediately offered their support. "Leela, we're here for you every step of the way," my dad said firmly. You don't have to face this alone." With their encouragement, I took the first step toward reclaiming control over my life. I contacted a lawyer to discuss filing for both a restraining order and a divorce. The lawyer was compassionate and thorough, guiding me through the process and assuring me that I was doing the right thing. During this time, Ryan attempted to reach out multiple times. He called, left voicemails, and even showed up outside my gym once. Each time, I ignored him. I knew his apologies couldn't undo what he'd done or rebuild the trust he had shattered. His presence only reaffirmed my decision to create boundaries and protect Mark and myself. Meanwhile, I'd also scheduled the DNA test. It wasn't for Ryan's sake. I knew Mark was his son, but I needed concrete proof to silence Mia's venomous accusations once and for all. It was a step toward clearing my name and ensuring that no one could question my integrity again. A week after the DNA test, I found myself back at the clinic, holding Mark tightly in my arms. My lawyer had advised me to be present when the results were revealed, not just for closure, but to ensure that Ryan and Mia couldn't twist the truth. Ryan sat across the room, looking pale and nervous, while Mia radiated smug confidence. Zach was also there, sitting quietly but shooting me an occasional look of support. The nurse walked in, holding an envelope. She handed it to Ryan, who hesitated before tearing it open. His hands shook as he read the results. The silence in the room was almost unbearable. Finally, Ryan looked up, his voice barely audible. "Mark is mine." Relief flitted through me, though it was quickly replaced by anger. "I told you," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions swirling inside me. "I told you Mark was your son, but instead of trusting me, you let your mother's poison destroy our family." Mia's smugness evaporated instantly. "There must be a mistake," she stammered, her voice trembling with disbelief. "This can't be right." Zach, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke up, his voice sharp and resolute. "Enough, Mom. You've been wrong this entire time. Your lies, your manipulation, they've ruined everything." Ryan hung his head, unable to meet my gaze. "Leela, I'm sorry," he mumbled. "I don't know how to make this right." I shook my head, my resolve unshaken. "Sorry isn't enough, Ryan. You doubted me, hurt me, and put our son in danger. There's no coming back from that." I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. "This is a restraining order," I said firmly, placing it on the table in front of Ryan. "You're not allowed near me or Mark anymore. I'm also filing for divorce." Ryan's head shot up, his face a mixture of shock and regret. "Leela, please. Don't do this. I made a mistake, but I can fix it." I stared at him, my voice cold and unwavering. "You pushed me while I was holding our son. That's not a mistake. It's abuse, and I won't forgive you for it." Mia tried to interject, her voice filled with venom. "She's overreacting, Ryan. You don't need her." Zach cut her off sharply. "Mom, stop it. You've done enough. This is all on you." I stood up, holding Mark protectively in my arms. "You've lost us, Ryan, and you have your mother to thank for that." With that, I walked out of the clinic, leaving Ryan and Mia behind. The weight of their toxicity was lifted from my shoulders as I stepped into the fresh air. Zach caught up with me in the parking lot, his face filled with regret. "Leela," he said quietly, "I'm sorry for everything. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know." I gave him a small smile. "Thank you, Zach, but right now, I just need to focus on Mark and moving forward." As I drove back to my apartment, I felt a sense of relief and closure. The truth was out, and I had taken the first steps toward a better future for myself and my son. The days following the DNA test were a blur of legal proceedings and emotional healing. With my lawyer's guidance, I officially filed for divorce and pursued legal action against Ryan for his violent behavior. The restraining order ensured that Mark and I were protected, and I finally felt a sense of safety in our new life. The evidence against Ryan was overwhelming. My medical records, the incident report, and Zach's willingness to testify about Mia's manipulation and Ryan's temper made a strong case. During the court hearings, Ryan seemed remorseful, but it was too late for apologies. His actions had consequences, and he had to face them. The judge handed down a clear and just sentence. Ryan was convicted of domestic violence in child endangerment. He was sentenced to 6 months in prison and ordered to pay a $50,000 fine, part of which was awarded to me as compensation for the harm he had caused. Hearing the verdict brought a mix of emotions, relief that justice was served, but sadness for what our relationship had become. Mia, though not legally charged, faced her own consequences. Her manipulative behavior had driven her family apart. Zach cut ties with her entirely, unwilling to tolerate her toxicity any longer. Her once proud demeanor crumbled as she realized the damage she had caused was irreversible. Back at home, I focused on rebuilding my life. The apartment, though small, became a haven of peace for Mark and me. My parents visited often, helping me decorate and turning the space into a warm and inviting home. I returned to work at the fitness center, grateful for the routine and the supportive community that surrounded me. One evening, as I played with Mark in the living room, I realized how much had changed. The fear and tension that once defined my days were gone, replaced by a sense of hope and stability. Mark, now starting to babble his first words, was my greatest source of joy. I was determined to give him a life filled with love and positivity, free from the shadows of the past. Weeks passed, and life began to feel normal again. Mark and I had settled into our routine, and each day brought a little more peace. I focused on my job, my son, and the small victories that came with reclaiming my independence. It felt like we were finally moving forward. Then, one afternoon, there was an unexpected knock on my apartment door. Peeking through the peephole, I froze. Mia stood on the other side, looking disheveled and far removed from her usual composed self. For a moment, I considered ignoring her, but the persistent knocking forced me to open the door, if only to end the disturbance. "Mia, what are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my tone firm. She hesitated before speaking, her voice surprisingly soft. "Leela, I just want to see Mark. He's my grandson. Please, I'm begging you." Her words stirred no sympathy in me. I had spent months enduring her lies, her accusations, and the destruction she brought into my life. This sudden shift in her tone didn't erase the damage she had caused. "You lost that right when you tore this family apart," I said firmly, blocking the doorway. "Mark is my son, and I'll protect him from the toxicity you bring. He doesn't need you in his life." Mia's face crumpled, and for a brief moment, I saw a glimmer of regret. "I know I made mistakes, Leela. I let my jealousy and my need to control things cloud my judgment. But Mark, he's innocent in all of this. Please, don't shut me out." I stood my ground, my resolve unshaken. "You didn't just make mistakes, Mia. You deliberately tried to ruin my life. You doubted my character, encouraged Ryan's behavior, and put Mark's safety at risk. You're not part of this family anymore. Leave and don't come back." Mia's shoulders sagged as she realized her pleas were falling on deaf ears. Without another word, she turned and walked away, her figure disappearing down the hallway. I closed the door, leaning against it for a moment as I gathered myself. Saying no to her was the easiest decision I had ever made. Mark deserved better, and so did I. That evening, as I watched Mark peacefully sleeping in his crib, I felt a deep sense of relief. The chains of Mia's influence had finally been broken. I was free to create a safe, happy life for my son, unburdened by the toxicity of the past. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into creating a positive and stable environment for Mark. My apartment became our sanctuary, a place filled with laughter, love, and the peace I had longed for. Slowly but surely, the wounds of the past began to heal. I also began making strides in my career. With the support of my coworkers and clients, I gained the confidence to take a bold step, opening my own fitness studio. It had always been a dream of mine, And now, with Mark as my motivation, I was determined to turn it into a reality. I poured my energy into every detail, from designing the space to creating a welcoming atmosphere for clients. The grand opening of my studio was a proud moment. My parents were there, beaming with pride, and Mark toddled around, drawing smiles from everyone. The community's response was overwhelming, and I knew I had made the right choice in starting this new chapter. Meanwhile, Ryan served his sentence quietly. Occasionally, I'd hear through mutual acquaintances that he was attending therapy in prison and working on himself, but I kept my distance. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, and I needed to protect Mark and myself from any further pain. One day, I received a letter from Ryan. It was unexpected, and I debated whether to open it. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. In the letter, Ryan expressed deep remorse for his actions. He admitted that he had let his insecurities and his mother's influence cloud his judgment. He apologized for the harm he caused and wished Mark and me a happy life. He ended the letter by promising to respect my boundaries and stay away unless I ever wanted otherwise. While his words didn't undo the past, they gave me a sense of closure. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, knowing it was time to let go of the anger I had carried for so long. Not for Ryan's sake, but for my own. Mark continued to grow, his bright smile lighting up my days. His first words, his tiny footsteps, and his playful laughter reminded me of how far we had come. Every milestone was a testament to the strength we had found in each other. Thank you for joining me on this journey of resilience and hope. If you were inspired by Layla's strength and determination, don't forget to give this story a like to show your support. Share your thoughts and favorite moments in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more empowering stories that will leave you feeling inspired. Let's grow stronger together.